Hey guys, I'm going to show you how to put together an EPP wing. This is the MiniZ 30 from Ritewing. I think it's one of the best choices for a mini quad pilot that wants to get into wings for several reasons. Mainly electronics, takes a mini quad motor, and it is very tough compared to a molded wing. But it is a bit more difficult to put together than a ready to fly, obviously. But I'm going to show you that it's actually pretty easy. Just break it into steps and it's pretty straightforward. So this is the MiniZ half wing. It's pretty interesting that it's it's CNC'd hot wing cut out, and then it looks like, I'm not sure, it looks like it's put on a CNC mill to actually mill the spar slots. I don't know if you can see that. The spar slots and the shape of the wing, the cutouts are all done. There's even a little spar slot here. On the back we have the little cutout for the door. This just needs to be cut out. Very nice, very interesting. So that is what a MiniZ is, 30 inches. Can be cut down to 24. I wouldn't recommend it. So it comes with the accessories I'll look at in a second, and it also comes with the covering, which I don't have here, but I have plenty of it. Let's have a look at this. This looks interesting. So spars, I believe these are fiberglass. I'm not absolutely certain. It might be carbon. Although no, it's probably fiberglass. Doesn't really matter. Fiberglass is actually tougher because it can bend more and won't break. So yeah, I'm pretty sure that's fiberglass. We have okay, so this is the bottom cover where the battery bay is. Winglets, outer winglets, and inner winglets, which go around the motor. That looks like it would cover up that hole nicely. Not sure. Yeah, so one of the main problems with little EPP wings like this, mainly right wing, but I think the other ones are the same, is there's no real manual. And there's a bunch of different information that's all around the internet. And I'm going to try and condense it for you guys. The other problem is the techniques evolve too. So even if you find a video, there might be a newer technique to build it tougher. I'm trying to use all the latest techniques. So the motor mount is, I don't know what kind of plastic this is. Seems pretty flimsy, but I think once it's glued in place, there's not much showing, so it should be good enough. And a motor mount, which is 3D printed, which should be strong enough too. It does, one of the claims is it'll break rather than breaking your wing. Rather than ripping the motor mount out of the wing, you'll break the 3D printed part. And some hardware to mount the motor mount. And these are just the elevons, which I believe will have to be cut to shape. Yeah, these are just stock balsa. So these will have to be cut to fit correctly on the wing. Isn't too hard. So what you'll need to be able to assemble any EPP wing, not necessarily just this one, is glue. You do need quite a bit of different glues. First you need medium CA. This is just cheap Hobby King stuff. A SIA activator, not necessarily. I mean, if you can wait, you don't have to have that. You need goop. You can't find goop easily in Europe, so you can order it from the States. You can replace it with UHU pour, which works. I've built plenty of wings with this. This is actually my first one using goop. So it works. I've heard it turns yellow in the sun, but I paint my wings, so I've never noticed it really. Hot glue. You will need hot glue. It's not absolute necessary, but it's much easier to glue in the electronics with this. That way, to get the electronics out, all you have to do is pour some alcohol into the glue area and it will unglue, which is pretty handy. That's actually what I did to build this wing, is I ripped some stuff out of an older wing. Then for finishing the wing, 3M90 is sprayed onto the wing so the covering sticks really well. And then if you want to paint, any cheapo acrylic paint should work. As for tools, it's pretty simple. I mean, a knife, a ruler, some pins will help with gluing, but I mean, you can always tape stuff in place if you don't have them. And some sandpaper. So I might use a saw, something to cut the fiberglass rods, a saw or something. And electronics wise, you need two, preferably Metal Gear micro servos. I don't know why they call these 9-gram servos now. Used to be standard servo, mini servo, micro servo, but there's tons of different sizes. But anything small, 9-ish grams. A 3-way receiver. I'm going to use. What is this? Is this an X4R? Yeah, X4R. So X4R you can get 3 channels out of, which is plenty. I really think it's not worth putting any sort of flight controller in it. I think if you want to monitor anything, it's only the battery voltage. Just get a camera that has an OSD with the battery voltage in, which I have somewhere here. You'll need an ESC. Can't use you can use a mini quad ESC, but you won't have the BEC that will power the receiver and servos, and you can't use a little tiny BEC like you would on a mini quad, because the servos do use up more power than just a flight controller. So something like this is pretty cheap. Or you can use a mini quad with a ESC with a BEC if you really want to. I'm using the good old 600 milliwatts. You don't really want to use one of the new VTXs because they heat up quite a bit, and they don't like being inside a foam wing. So they will overheat. Something like this is bulletproof, basically. And if you do use like a TBS Unify or a Tramp, put a heatsink on it and have it stick out over the covering so it's cooled. So camera, I have this laying around, a Foxeer. Something. Aero Mini. Foxeer Aero Mini I'm going to put in it. Ripped that out of another wing. So, I think that's it. We'll start building this thing. I did forget one thing you need. That would be a hobby iron. Preferably a hobby iron. If you're in a pinch, you could use just a regular old iron, clothing iron. But I think these are like $12 or something. So get one, and it's very useful. Okay, so first thing you would need to do for any EPP is, in this case at least, cut the beds in two, because you're going to use the beds to build the wing in, so you don't build a twist into it by accident. It's nice and flat on the bed. Put this to the side. Take your two bottoms and your two halves and simply hot glue them together. You'll notice that they're never exactly the same height. So what you want to do is actually make sure they are at the correct height on the side of the wing. So this needs to be lifted up. Make sure they meet nice in front there, and then here it's nice and flush. I'm just going to do that there and there. There isn't much left in this here. Hot glue works fine for this. Okay, we're ready. The hot glue's hot. I'm going to glue front and back. There isn't much in the middle here, but that'll do. It doesn't really need much strength. I don't know if you can see here, but these are not aligned on the bottom, but they are on the top. Okay, same with the bottom. Okay, so now we have a nice working surface to put our cores on. So the first thing to do is to put the motor mount in, basically. Well, do the cutout for the motor mount. Then glue the two wings together without the motor mount. Okay, so make sure your cores line up nicely when that's in place. This isn't centered, but it's not glued. Kind of screwed up this one. Had to make the slot a little bit bigger. It doesn't really matter because it'll be filled with goop. Okay, once that is done, I'm supposing that these come out. Yeah. Once that is done, next thing to do is glue the wings together. So let's do that. This is where you want your wing cores so your wing is nice and straight. Make sure they're on the right direction on the cores. So basically all you want to do is glue them together with some goop. Make sure they're nice and aligned. Put a few pins so they don't move. And then leave it dry for, I'm not sure how long. I've never used goop, but about an hour, I guess. You might also want to protect your bed. For this, I'm just going to use masking tape. Doesn't stick very well, but it doesn't matter. It's just to keep the wings from going to the beds. So I left this probably about 2 hours. I was busy. I think it's enough. 1 hour should probably be enough. It's a little tacky on the bottom. I'll be careful not to move it. So the next step you want to do is prepare the spars to the correct length there. They need to be cut usually. Seems like, okay. So these ones don't need to be cut, so 4 don't need to be cut. And these ones need to be cut to length. What I do is I just use a little saw. Trying to see where these go from here to there. To about there. I just use a little saw and cut, and then turn it a little bit. Cut, turn it, cut. Then it doesn't fray. Because if you try to cut it with like pliers, it'll fray and be nasty. Then once there's just one little bit in the middle, you can kind of rip it out. So these spars cross over each other, so you want to be sure that they go down far enough in the slot, which it looks like they won't go down far enough. So, oh yeah, there we go. Just gotta kind of force it in. So it looks like maybe the slots are a bit deeper at the ends, but I'm gonna make them a bit deeper. If you have a wing, usually wings don't come where this is already milled out. All you have to do is take a knife and cut a slot where they go and then push them into the slot. So I'm just going to make the slot a little deeper at the ends so we can push them down a bit deeper so the other one can cross over it. You don't want the spars to be higher than the surface of the wing. You want them to be at the height of the wing. So this should be able to be pushed down far enough so another one can go over it. So put all your spars in. Here, there's 2 little ones here. And then we're going to glue them in, so I'm going to put them in first. Okay, so once you have your spars in, what you want to do is glue them in with CA so they don't move. Then we're going to put goop over it. Okay, the spars are in. Let them dry a little bit. Maybe put a little bit of kicker. I think this is okay with EPP. Yeah, it's fine. Maybe not. It's okay, just a tiny bit. And I'm going to let that dry a bit, and then I'm going to do the other side. Doesn't really matter around here if this is going to get filled with goop with the motor mount. I just wanted to close up this little seam. Did a little. I think it was glued properly, just didn't look the part. I'll add a little bit of goop when I goop the spars. So the next step is, before gooping, if I want to sand this, first of all, to make sure there's no CA spikes or anything sticking up, but also to get this surface that was hot wire cut. It's kind of melted foam, so it's kind of hard. So just 120. I'm going to go over the whole wing. Start with the top since that has had time to dry. Okay, now that that's done, I'm noticing one thing I need to do, which is cut out this. I'm going to do that now. So you want to cut it out this thickness. Looks like about 2 millimeters. That's pretty good. We'll glue this in once it's painted and covered, and that will keep a nice clean black look. This doesn't cover very well too. Well, in my experience. So, I think all that's left to do now is to goop over the spars. So what you want to do is put goop over the spars and wipe it clean with something or your finger, but even if you do use something, use gloves. can be generous. You can go further out than the spar, that's fine. It'll just help the covering adhere to the wing. And one thing you might want to do so it doesn't move and warp the wing while it's drying, just add some weights. I'll add some front and back. As long as it's in the cores, it should stay true, not twist. There we go. It's ready to dry. Okay, I already flipped the wing over and gooped up the other side late last night. That way it's about 7 hours after I did the one side. It's getting really stiff. Not in torsion, but the covering will help with that. Looks just fine. Goop dries a little bit harder than the UHU pour. It is nice. Okay, so now I just want to get in the motor mount. I think I'll do that on this core upside down. Okay, I tried looking online because there's 2 lines here. I wonder if they're supposed to line up with the trailing edge there. But if it's sticking out like that anyways, it'll be flimsy. Yeah, I think it needs to go in. I'll just use a lighter battery if it's too nose heavy. Okay, I'll get ready to goop that. I think I'll prep it a bit by sanding it. Okay, so I got it glued up, eyeballed straight. Plenty of weight on it. This is aluminum that's filled with lead that I poured in there, so these are weights. These aren't real light, these are pretty heavy. And I'm going to leave that until tomorrow, and then tomorrow we can finish most of the wing, hopefully. Okay, this is the next day. I'll have a look at how this dried. So the gaps that I had filled up nicely. I'm going to have to cut this glue off, but looks fine. So the next step we're going to do is make it into an FPV plane, because for now it's pretty much only servos. But we need space for the receiver and the video transmitter. I don't know if they'll fit in here with the battery. This is probably a big battery. So yeah, even with a big battery there might be room. Or these are very deep. Maybe we could fit the receiver in one of the holes here. It's actually not a bad idea. And then the video transmitter. Usually on a wing, you put the video transmitter on one side and the receiver on the other. That way there's no interference. You could get better range. But this is a proximity wing, so I'm not going to be doing any long range. It's not that important. So let me think about this and I'll figure out where to put all this. Because I want to cut the holes out before actually painting and covering, so. You don't want the wing to be too far on the outsides either, because this is just a proximity wing. And you want it to fly stable. And the further out you put weight, the more pendulum effect there is, and the less it'll stabilize quickly. In other words, it'll have more inertia, and it will bounce back more. Where if it's real light, it'll just stabilize quicker. So maybe put. Looks like the fit under the servos, which would be nice. So you can see to put the servos in, I just cut a little slot where I can put in the little screw mounts. Push it in. I'm going to have to make this hole a little bit bigger. But if not, it fits nicely. And on the other side, there is plenty of room for the receiver. On one side, and I'm guessing the VTX, maybe just make the slot shaped a little differently. There, it's nice and integrated. Let's check with the servo. That seems a bit deep. That fits fine. Fits just perfectly. Okay, so now what I'm going to do is we need somewhere to put the wires in between here and here, and the ESC, which will be somewhere in the middle. Not sure. Let's start by making holes for the wires. This is what I use for making holes. Just a blowtorch. You can use a heat gun, or if you're really in a pinch, just a lighter. But and a piece of piano wire that I heat up. You can also use a nail or something like that if you're really in a pinch. But piano wire is nice and long and you can get in there. So I'm basically going to heat it up and then go ahead and make a hole on each side. And probably one to the front. Yeah, because we're going to need something that goes with the camera. That'll work nicely once I cut out the nose to put the camera in. There'll be a hole there. One last one for the antenna. Let's check where that goes first. That's not as pretty as a hole as I'd like, but I think it'll work. Let's give it a try. There we go. So what I can do to be able to put this on is put some heat shrink on here. I'll do that quick. So there we go. That'll be sticking out the top of the wing. Obviously, this is going to create drag on one side, which isn't good. On a bigger wing, it would be closer in percentage to the middle. On this, we'll see. It might not fly as good. Ideally, what you want is side mount axis, so you can embed it in the wing. We'll try that. The thing I like to do with 2.4 antennas in a wing is just embed them inside the wing. It's going to be a problem when we try to finish this wing, because I don't want to cut, because what I do is cut through the foam and just put the antennas in. So what I'm going to do is I don't leave the receiver in here even when I paint the wing. I'll just mask it. So you want the two antennas to be at 90 degrees, right? So I'll probably... There. I'll mask this up when I paint the wing. Next to do, figure something out for the ESC. Okay, so we have everything in. The last thing to do is to put in the camera. But I found this camera nose on Thingiverse. So I'm going to use this. I think I'll put it in after I laminate the wing. I'll just cut out, glue it in. I think it'll be easier. So, the wing is ready to laminate, but we want to laminate the elevons at the same time, and as long as we're painting and laminating. So let's cut the elevons. So there is one side that's higher than the other. I don't know if you can see that. So you want the high, well, the most forward side, it's cut slightly at an angle. You want the highest spot to be on the top, like this. So I'm just going to mark these and cut them. Because you do want them to be a couple millimeters shorter than this, because there's going to be a winglet on each side, and you need some play for that so it doesn't rub when it's going up and down. So I'm going to cut it about a couple millimeters shorter, so there's a millimeter gap on each side. So that's the basic cuts. Then what I want to do is maybe cut here so it's not as fragile at the tip here. And then what we usually do on wings is we cut the elevon like this. I'll trace it out more precisely so they're symmetrical. I have some spars sticking out, the two bottom spars, probably because they don't go as far because of the door cutout. I'll just sand those off. So there we are, we're ready to paint, well, paint and cover. I'll make another episode because I think this will be long enough. See you guys in the next episode.